A buddy of mine asked for my opinion on Final Fantasy 16, so here are my thoughts on the game after about 8 hours of playtime. The short answer is that I really like the game, but not necessarily as a Final Fantasy game. The first thing that stands out about this game is that it's rated mature. This becomes obvious very quickly when characters start dropping F-bombs and you see a little bit more graphic violence in some of the cutscenes. The first F bomb actually caught me off guard because I didn't think that you could drop them in team rated games. That was when I checked the box and I noticed that it was rated in for mature. The only reason I mention this is because it sets the tone for the game. This story feels like a Final Fantasy story, however, it feels different from what I've come to expect from a Final Fantasy story. This creates sort of a feeling of cognitive dissonance between expectation and reality. As an example, early on, you fight one of the series' most iconic enemy types, and the name of this enemy is slightly different from what we've come to expect from the prior entries in the series. That sticks in my head as an example of how this game is like a Final Fantasy game, but also something different from what we've come to expect from a Final Fantasy game. This becomes even more apparent when you look at the combat gameplay. I want to say first off that I think that the combat is a lot of fun. I was trying to avoid comparing Final Fantasy 16 to too many different games, but I do want to give some point of comparison for the combat. It reminds me a lot of the God of War games. Combat is very flashy and fluid. You're encouraged to build combos and just keep moving. There's a training area in the game, so I'll show a clip of that here. I was trying to avoid showing too many spoilers for the game itself. The main character, Clive, has some different abilities which allows him to close the gap between himself and an enemy. You can unlock other abilities as well as upgrade existing ones via an ability selection screen. You'll get the upgrade points for abilities after completing battles, and these are separate from the experience points needed to level up. You start with abilities focused around fire, and as the game progresses, you'll unlock skill trees related to other elements. Much like swapping your weapons in God of War, you can swap your element in the middle of battle, and this changes your abilities, which in turn affects your combat style. I really enjoy games like God of War and Bayonetta, so this combat style is a lot of fun to me. One funny thing that keeps happening to me, and I fully expect it to keep happening to me, is that I mess up the dodge. Just before this, I did another quick playthrough of Final Fantasy VII Remake. My brain is now hardwired to hold R1 and press circle to dodge. If you do this in Final Fantasy VII Remake, you dodge. If you do this in Final Fantasy XVI, you move closer to the enemy, which generally doesn't bode too well for dodging an attack from that enemy. I can't be the only one with this problem. There are sections in the game where you'll fight as one of the giant icons. These are the summons that we've come to know from previous entries in the series. These fights are visually impressive, although I don't particularly enjoy them. It feels like more priority was given to the visual spectacle of the fight, as opposed to engaging in fun combat mechanics. As Clive, you'll constantly be teleporting in close to your enemy and chaining attacks and combos. As the icon, I've only ever been able to get in a few hits before the scuffle breaks apart, and there's like this awkward period where I'm trying to move in closer to the enemy while avoiding ranged attacks. And there's also these cinematic interruptions where the game sort of takes over and you have to hit a button to either dodge or attack. I'm still early in the game, so maybe some of the later icon fights become more complex. This is just my perspective on it for the first few icon fights in the game. The item system is completely overhauled. Instead of buying 99 potions at the shop, you can only carry a few at a time. I've heard that game developers hate it when players try to hoard a lot of different items, and so there's been a push in more modern games to try to prevent that. This game falls right in line with that mentality. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm the type of player who will buy 99 of everything at the item shop and then never use them. It just turns your inventory into clutter. Now, the clutter is gone, and your options are far more streamlined. You just map one of the available potions to your D-pad, and then in the middle of combat, with a single button press, you use one of the potions. It's fine. On the subject of item clutter, there is one gripe that I want to mention. When you first start the game, it presents you with some configuration options, and one of those options is whether you want to play in story mode or in action mode. Story mode, per the description, makes the game a little bit easier, and it's more for players who just want to experience the story without necessarily dealing with the challenging combat. In addition to story mode and the easier difficulty, there are items in the game that alter the way you play in combat. Some of these change combat to make it very easy, such as using one button to perform very complex combos. These are fine. I have no problem with these items being in the game. What really drives me crazy is the fact that these things are always in your inventory, even on action mode. I chose action mode, and now these items are always there in the list of accessories that could be equipped. And no matter what I do, they're just there. I can't sell them, I can't delete them. And it's just clutter in my inventory. And I know this is a minor gripe. I admit that. It is a minor gripe, but it's just one of those things. I wish these things lived in a system menu somewhere as opposed to just being items that are always in my inventory that might accidentally get selected. That's it. That's my minor gripe. Among other things, the game looks really good. You probably already knew that. I'm just saying, the game looks really good. Oh, and there's Doggo. And yes, you can pet Doggo. Overall, I think Final Fantasy 16 is a really good game. I actively look forward to playing it. In fact, I wish I was playing it right now instead of making this YouTube video. I think I'm going to go play it now.